Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yes, today is Thursday again, and we know what that is, Crooked Drinker. So we're gonna hear it here to say, but let's start with greetings. Go hello, my name is Daniel. I'm your host, your
guy in the chair.
He said it! He said it!
And today for Crooked Drinker, we're gonna see and listen to Alien Romulus. It's game over, it seems like the franchise. So many people hate it and a lot of people love it. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I want to see it. But so, let's enjoy. So enjoy.
To say that the Alien franchise hasn't exactly gone from strength to strength over the years. Yeah, it opened strong with one of the greatest horror movies of all time, followed by an action-packed sequel that retained the tension and horror while upping the stakes and pacing. Then it all started to go downhill with a grim, mean-spirited third installment that spoiled everyone's fun, and a weird, tacky, cash-grab fourth movie that we don't talk about now. After trying and failing twice to cross over with the Predator franchise, we were subjected to a pair of overblown, overhyped prequels that tried to answer questions nobody wanted to ask, and proved that film directors don't always get better with age. And honestly, that really felt like the end. Every possible avenue had been explored, every permutation of the original concept had been tried, and the poor old xenomorphs had finally been defeated by the one enemy that even they couldn't overcome: corporate greed. But hey, when you're a creatively and morally bankrupt studio that's paid an obscene amount of money for 20th Century Fox and all the IPs under their banner, you're gonna find a way to dig just a little deeper. Which brings me neatly along to Alien Romulus. Ditching the pretentious, high-minded philosophy of the Prometheus movies, the trailers instead promised a more stripped-down, back-to-basics approach to the Alien franchise. A smaller budget, practical effects, and a return to the retro-futuristic production design of the earlier movies. So far, so good, but does it actually deliver? Well, watching Alien Prometheus feels like two very different movies awkwardly bolted together. The first one is a tight, well-paced sci-fi thriller with a simple premise, great production design, a small cast of characters, an intriguing mystery, and some excellent performances by talented actors. In short, it's a simple but effective foundation for what could have been a decent Alien movie. The problems begin when setup has to give way to execution, and the tension gets squandered by the predictable horror tropes of dumb characters making dumb decisions, protracted chase scenes, shameless key jangling, and repurposed dialogue. And by the end, all sense of logic and consequences goes completely out the window, and the film devolves into mindless action and goofy attempts at body horror. Now, I suspect I'm going to take a lot of flack for saying this, because for some reason everyone fucking loves this movie, but what the hell? I am become Drinker, the destroyer of dreams. Anyway, grab your pulse rifle and motion tracker and let's begin, shall we? So Romulus is set about 20 years after the events of the original Alien, and it kicks off with a Weyland-Yutani ship recovering the original xenomorph from the wreckage of the Nostromo. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Nostromo was vaporized by not one, but 3 thermonuclear explosions. And the xenomorph was blasted out into space from Ripley's escape pod, so the chances of actually finding it 2 decades later are about equal to finding an attractive woman at a Warhammer convention. But man, it sure is cool to see stuff from the original movie, am I right? Keep that little writing philosophy in mind because it'll be important later. Anyway, the real action picks up with our main character, Rain, who works as a laborer on a mining planet run by the company. She lives with a decommissioned android named Andy, who acts as a kind of adopted brother for her. Anyway, she's not exactly thrilled to be trapped on a planet where it's dark 24 hours a day and the life expectancy hovers somewhere around medieval Europe. Honestly, love, try living in Scotland. It seems like a picnic by comparison. But when her contract gets extended due to labour shortages, it's pretty obvious that the company is never actually going to let her leave. That's when she's contacted by her ex-boyfriend Tyler with news that a derelict space station has been detected orbiting the planet. Tyler and his crew plan to head up there in a cargo hauler, steal some cryopods, and use them to travel to a much nicer planet a few light years away. The catch is that they need Andy's help because he's the only one who can interface with the station's computer. Before you can ask questions like, why is nobody else investigating this space station? Or, wouldn't Weyland-Yutani have sent out their own recovery team for it? Rain and the others are on their way. They make it on board and discover that the station isn't derelict at all. In fact, it was some kind of classified research facility experimenting on the xenomorph. And well, it went about as well as you might expect. The other problem is that its orbit is decaying, so they only have a few hours to find what they need, get back to their ship and get the hell out of there. Not bad. A small group of characters with a clear objective, a ticking clock, a dangerous threat to contend with, and some interpersonal tension to ratchet up the drama. Not exactly revolutionary, but a decent foundation for a neat little alien adventure. Unfortunately, this is where the script starts to go off the rails. One of the crew gets infected by a facehugger and tries to escape on the cargo hauler, but oh no, the chestburster kills her just as they're lifting off. You know, I'm pretty sure that the whole process from facehugger to chestburster is supposed to take a couple of days, but now it's basically instantaneous for the sake of plot convenience. And oh no, the cargo hauler crashes into the station and causes a big explosion that pushes it off orbit, and then comes to rest completely intact in a hangar on the other side of the station. Wow, that was a lucky chain of events. Lucky it didn't just tumble off into space or get completely destroyed like the dropship from Aliens. Remember that? Remember how it triggered an overload in the atmosphere processor, so the characters had to find a way to escape? The writers of this script certainly do. And while I'm on that subject, that's not the only idea that they borrowed from other movies. Remember the pulse rifles? Remember Ash? Remember the alien hive? Remember the laser mist? Remember the black goo?
What was that black goo?
Remember the alien Skeletor baby? Remember the fourth act stinger? Remember this line?
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Or this line?
But you have my sympathies.
Or this line?
Get away from her, you bitch.
I've heard enough of this, and I'm asking you to pull the plug.
Honestly, I could probably spend about 2 hours listing all the stuff this film shamelessly steals from other movies in the franchise, but for the sake of brevity, I'll move on. So the main objective now is for the gang to hike across the station, avoid the aliens, recover the cargo hauler, and escape before the whole place goes boom. Oh yeah, and Andy's been upgraded with a new operating system, so he's like Super Andy now. But can they still trust him, or is he now a servant of the company? What's the true purpose behind the research here, and will any of them make it out alive? Now, I don't want to go all in on the negativity right off the bat. There are things in Romulus that I really appreciated, so let's go through them first. The cinematography, production design, props, costumes, and soundtrack are all excellent. They've successfully replicated the look and feel of the original movie, and I appreciated the opening segment on the mining colony that gives us an actual window into what it's like for normal people working on a Weyland-Yutani worlds. I like the early hints that humans are struggling with deep space colonization, hence the attempts to mix them with alien DNA to make them stronger. Yeah, the payoff doesn't make much sense when you realize the solution is to turn all of humanity into horrifyingly deformed monsters, or the fact that they already have perfect workers in the form of androids who never get tired or sick or have to be paid, but whatever. I like the fact that this project was done on a pretty modest budget of 80 million without sacrificing quality or scope, proving that you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver a top-notch visual experience. It uses a lot of practical effects. There's some decent gore and body horror, and the production probably saved a ton of money by not hiring any big-name actors. On that subject, the cast all do a reasonable job. I say reasonable rather than great because they're nowhere near as memorable as the crew of the Nostromo, for example, partly because the decision to cast a bunch of 20-somethings robs them of some much-needed gravitas, and partly because the script doesn't tell us a whole lot about them despite the amount of time we actually spend with them. In Alien, I felt like I knew the crew pretty well within like the first 15 minutes, but by the end of Romulus, I struggled to name a single character or what their personality was like because they all have the same background, played by actors of roughly the same age. The only exception to all of this is David Johnson, who does a superb job playing two completely different versions of the same character in Andy. It's great stuff, and he really captures the innocent vulnerability of a being that's trying his best to fit in without really understanding the people around him. Kaylee Speeney is fine as rain, I guess. She doesn't have Sigourney Weaver's intensity and charisma or Noomi Rapace's physicality, but she gets the job done without too much fuss. Rain's likeable enough, and her relationship with Andy is a nice twist on the usual dynamics we see in films like this, even if it doesn't come close to the emotional impact of Ripley and Newt. The actors are fine, the director's good, and the production is excellent. The only real problem is the script, especially the third act, which throws so much ridiculous shit at you that it honestly feels like it was lifted from a completely different movie. Before you know it, characters will be flying up and down elevator shafts fighting aliens while the gravity goes haywire, or shooting a swarm of them with a pulse rifle and acting surprised when acid blood goes flying everywhere, or injecting themselves with the black goo for no reason so that they can give birth to an alien baby that instantly transforms into a 10-foot 6-foot-tall human xenomorph engineer hybrid for yet another climactic showdown. The script just never lets up. It doesn't know when to quit, and instead of being exhilarating, it just becomes kind of tedious and exhausting by the end. All that carefully crafted tension and world building just goes out of the window in a confusing maelstrom of what I can best describe as J.J. Abrams' brand of rapid-fire stupidity. Just keep hitting the audience with more idiotic stuff that makes zero sense but looks really good, so they never have time to stop and think about it before the next dumb thing comes along. Basically, Romulus has got a strong opening, a slightly shaky middle, and a finale that screws the pooch so hard that the pooch is going to be in therapy for the rest of its natural life. It's not exactly a terrible movie, but it's definitely not great either, and what's frustrating is that all the right elements were there to deliver something so much better than what we got. And what's weird is that people seem to be going nuts over this film. It's had a huge opening weekend, and if you believe the chatter online, it's the greatest thing since Sigourney Weaver picked up a pulse rifle. To people who think that way, I would politely suggest they go back and rewatch the first two Aliens movies, really think about how they worked, how they handle their characters and relationships, and escalate the tension and stakes while staying fairly believable, and then come back and tell me what you really think about Romulus. Somehow, I don't think you'll be quite so positive. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Hey guys, I hope y'all heard that. And listen, I don't see what the big deal is. Everybody liking it, everybody hating it. I'm waiting to see when it comes out. I ain't going to just pay money not to like it, because that'll suck. But hey, this is when I say like, comment, and subscribe. But I'll be. Oh, everyone has an awesome day, and they just had a good night. But I'll catch you in the next video. Monday, Dhar Mann. Bye.